The late afternoon sun filtered softly through the sheer curtains, casting a golden hue over Wine's bedroom. Her heart was still racing, a giddy mix of adrenaline and disbelief bubbling beneath her skin. As she paced slowly across the room, her phone pressed tightly to her ear. Oh God, Mirha, you don't understand. I was so nervous. I could barely breathe, but I still did it. Her voice wavered with emotion, both anxious and exhilarated. A smile spread across her face even as she dropped onto the edge of her bed, letting her free hand run through her hair. Mirha's excited voice chattered on the other end, but Wine barely had time to reply before the sudden sharp chime of the doorbell cut through the moment. It rang out once, then again. Impatiently, Wine blinked, startled, her brows froze slightly, lips parting in surprise. Okay, Mirha, I'll talk to you later. Someone is at the door. She ended the call, still clutching the phone in one hand as she made her way toward the front door, her bare feet tapping softly against the floorboards. She smoothed down her hair, tucking a few strands behind her ear, and smiled without even thinking. Just the thought of Jungkook possibly standing there sent butterflies erupting in her chest. She unlocked the door and slowly pulled it open, and just like she had imagined, there he was, Jungkook, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a casual black tee and jeans. His dark hair tousled in a way that looked both effortless and intentional. His warm brown eyes lit up the second he saw her. His smile, that sweet, crooked smile that never failed to make her chest flutter, spread across his face. But then she saw her, Mina, standing beside him like she belonged there. Her long, dark hair was perfectly curled, cascading over her shoulders. She wore a cropped cardigan and a denim skirt, effortlessly pretty in a way that made Wine's stomach twist. Not out of jealousy exactly, but something close. Familiar discomfort. Wine's smile faltered just a little. It was subtle, so subtle she hoped Jungkook didn't notice, but inside her heart had dropped. Of course, Meena was here. Come in, Jungkook. Her tone was soft, but her eye briefly flicked toward Meena with a forced politeness. Jungkook gave a grateful nod and stepped inside, Meena following right behind him, her heels clicking delicately on the wooden floor. Meena offered a cheerful wave. Hey, Wine. Wine gave a tight-lipped smile in return, not trusting herself to say more. They made their way to the living room. Jungkook flopped down comfortably on the couch, stretching an arm across the backrest. Wine followed slowly, sitting beside him, her fingers curled in her lap. Despite the awkwardness, their conversation flowed with ease. One found herself laughing at his jokes, her earlier tension easing as Jungkook's warmth enveloped her like it always did. His presence had a way of calming her, grounding her. She was just beginning to feel okay again when he turned slightly to face her, his voice dropping in that familiar tone he used when he had something to say. Hey, so there is this party tomorrow night? Wine looked up introspective. I can only take one person with me, and I was really hoping you would come with me. Are you free? Time slot. The words hit her like sunlight through clouds. Her heart lifted. He could have picked Mina, his lifelong best friend who was practically glued to his side half the time, but he chose her, his girlfriend. It felt like validation. A soft smile crept onto her face, her voice warm with happiness. Yeah, I'm free. I would love to go. But before she could even savor the moment, his next words fell like a stone into a still pond, shattering the calm. Actually, it's Mina's birthday. She invited me. Wine blinked, her smile froze on her lip. her mind scrambling to keep up. Of course, she thought bitterly, that's why Mina's here, that's why he's going, that's why this is happening. She glanced briefly at Mina, who had settled herself on a nearby chair, scrolling through her phone with a content little smirk. Wine quickly looked away, masking her expression with a neutral one. She didn't want to seem jealous, she didn't want to appear petty, but her stomach twisted nonetheless. A sigh barely escaped her lips as she rolled her eyes so subtly only she noticed it. She didn't want to go. Every fiber of her being was screaming at her to say no. But the look on Jungkook's face was so soft, so hopeful, she couldn't bring herself to disappoint him. All right, I'll come. He beamed, clearly relieved, standing up. He reached for her, pulling her into a quick but affectionate hug that lingered just long enough to make her heart ache. Wait, then I'll pick you up tomorrow, okay? Wine nodded, her chin dipping slightly as she held her emotions in check. Yeah, that works. And just like that, he turned and headed toward the door with Mina trailing behind him. The door creaked open, a final whoosh of outside air rushing in before it closed shut again with a quiet click. Wine stood there for a long moment, the silence of the apartment closing in around her. She stared at the door long after they were gone, her arms wrapped loosely around herself as she swallowed down the emotions pressing against her chest. A party, Mina's party, and she was the plus one. The next evening arrived with a soft breeze and a quiet stillness outside, but inside Wine's room, the air buzzed with nerves and expectation. She stood in front of her full length mirror, adjusting the silky strap of her black satin slip dress. The fabric hugged her gently, flowing like liquid midnight around her legs. A subtle sit on one side revealed just enough for her thigh, while a delicate silver necklace rested against her collarbone. Her makeup was soft and elegant, rosy cheeks, winged eyeliner, and lips tinted the shade of crushed berries. Her hair fell in loose waves tucked behind one ear to reveal a pair of small crystal earrings. She didn't feel like dressing up, not tonight, not for Mina's birthday. But she wanted to look good for herself and for Jungkook. A short while later, she heard a knock. She grabbed her clutch and opened the door. Jungkook stood there, leaning slightly to the side, dressed in a black shirt with the top button left undone, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked effortlessly handsome, but something about the way his eyes trailed over her just for a second made her feel secondary. Like his mind was already somewhere else. Still, he offered his hand. You look amazing. Wine smiled, quietly accepting the compliment, and they left together. The party was held at an upscale rooftop venue lit by soft golden fairy lights strung between polished marble pillars. The pool shimmered nearby, its surface reflecting the glow of the overhead lanterns. Music played in the background, low, rhythmic, and pulsing with bass, while guests mingled in glittering outfits, holding wine glasses and laughing in small scattered groups. From the moment they arrived, Wine felt like an outsider. Mina found Jungkook the second they walked in. She beamed and threw her arms around him, barely sparing Wine a glance before looping her arm through his. And just like that, he was pulled into her orbit. Throughout the night, Mina clung to him like I, laughing too loud at his jokes, fixing his collar, tugging at his sleeve, whispering into his ear. Chubuk smiled politely, sometimes laughing along, never pushing her away. Wine stood near the corner of the show, beside a small glass table where half melted candles flickered in the breeze. Her fingers curled around the stem of a wine glass, her expression unreadable as she sipped slowly and watched them. He didn't even introduce her to anyone. The cake cutting moment came. Everyone gathered. Mina stood center stage in a champagne colored dress with glittering accents. She looked beautiful, radiant, even basking in the attention. Jungkook stood right beside her as she cut the cake. He smiled, offering her a playful clap, and even fed her a small piece, which she accepted far too intimately. The crowd laughed when Smile was gone. She turned slightly away, trying to mask the growing ache in her chest, and that's when she saw him. Across the deck, holding a glass of red wine and leaning against the railing, was someone she had not seen in years, Kim Taeyong. He had not changed much, still tall, striking with a sharp jawline and eyes that carried a mix of mystery and boredom. He looked like he didn't belong here, like he didn't want to be here. Dressed in a deep navy suit with his dark curls falling across his forehead, he stood alone, scanning the room as if looking for the nearest exit. Their eyes met, a slow smile tugged at the corner of his lips. And suddenly, Wine remembered everything. Back in college, Taeyong and Jungkook had clashed constantly, fights, rivals, and everything, from academics to sports to silent stares. But Taeyong had always been different around her. Gentle, calm, his eyes softened when they landed on her. He never raised his voice, never interrupted her thoughts. He simply understood her in ways Jungkook never bothered to. Then began walking toward her. The crowd faded in the background. Her heart ticked faster, not from nervous, but from the strange comfort of seeing him. Wine, his voice was low, smooth like velvet brushed in the dark. Theo, it's been a while. She smiled, and for the first time that evening, it was real. Before they could exchange more words, a piercing scream rang out. Mina. Heads turned, one spun around toward the pole, startled, and in the queue her heel snagged on the edge of the tile, slick with condensation. Her glass slipped from her hand and shattered with a soft crack, and the word tilted as her foot slid backward. She gasped before Tim could reach her. Before his arms could catch her, she was already falling. A second later, cold, sharp water engulfed her. She hit the surface hard, her breath stolen away as she sank. Limbs flailing in shock, the wine booze vanished instantly. Everything was muffled, screams above were distant and distorted. Her arms moved without control, fighting the water, but panic overtook reason. She was drowning. Somewhere above there was a splash. Relief flickered in her chest. Jungkook. He came for her, but her eyes fluttered open under the water just in time to see him swimming past her toward Mina, who had apparently slipped in right after her. His hands gripping Mina's arm, pulling her up swiftly to the surface as she clung to him, coughing and gasping for breath. Wine floated beneath them unseen. And wanted her body still, her limbs stopped fighting, her eyes wide in disbelief slowly began to shut. And then darkness, silence. Her heart cracked somewhere deep inside just before consciousness faded away. The world slowly drifted back into focus. A dull throbbing echoed in Wine's head, and her limbs felt heavy as if the water still clung to her bones. Her eyelids fluttered open, vision blurred, the soft sound of dripping water somewhere close. I just have as she coughed hard and wet, forcing water from her lungs. What happened? She found herself lying on a lawn chair by the poolside, wrapped in a towel. Her skin was cold and clammy, hair soaked and sticking to her face. But warmth came from the figure seated beside her tomb. His dress shirt was still soaked through, clinging to his stone chest, and his black tie hung loose around his neck. Strands of wet hair dripped water down his sharp jawline, and his knuckles were scraped red and raw. He had a wild look in his eyes, the kind you only see when someone's been terrified, not for himself, but for you. You are okay, thank God, Wine. He exhaled sharply, almost like he had been holding his breath the entire time. His voice was trembling, barely controlled. Who saved me? For a moment, he hesitated. Actually, I. But before he could finish, his body jerked forward violently. A hand had grabbed him by the tie, Jungkook. For he blazed in his eyes as he yanked him to his feet and punched him square in the jaw. Tim staggered back, bleeding, but didn't fight back. How dare you tell my girlfriend? One gasping scrambled upright, ignoring the ache in her limbs. She pushed Jungkook back hard, placing herself between them. Have you lost your mind? He stared at her, wild eye painting. Wine, he was all over you. He's been waiting for this. You didn't know him like I do. But Wine's blood was boiling. Her palm rose and landed clean and sharp against his cheek with a loud crack. He flinched. Don't you dare pretend to care about me now. What are you talking about? I came to the pool. I jumped in. I was there. You were there, but not for me. I was drowning, Joseph. I was sinking, and you swam right past me to her. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Don't you get it? I could have died, and you didn't even see me. Why I didn't know? I just reacted. Mina screamed. Yeah, Mina screamed, and you ran to her like you always do, like I never mattered. The party had fallen silent. Guests watched from a distance, turned into stillness as the drama unfolded. So, what you are just going to leave me now over this? We have been through so much. I'm not just leaving you. She stepped back and lifted her chin, her voice clear and cutting. I'm done, Jungkook. We're over. His face paled. Wine, don't do this, please. She looked him dead in the eye. I'm getting married next week. The color drained from his face completely. What do you mean? To whom? A slow, almost cruel smile curled on Wine's lips. To Theung. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Jungkook stumbled a little backward. Disbelief crashing into him like a wave. No, no, you're not doing this. You're not marrying him. Wine's eyes shone with unshed tears, but her voice was stronger than ever. Yes, I am. I never saw you love Jungkook. Not really. You choose Mina every single time, even when I was training. Her voice broke. Sobu, go back to your Mina. Jungkook stood frozen, jaw clenched, eyes dark with pain, but he said nothing because deep down he knew she was right. Wine turned without another word. She walked straight to Theung, who had stood silently throughout the storm, watching him heavy eyes. She reached for his hand, his fingers were trembling, and intertwined them with hers. He blinked, almost stunned, but the warmth of her touch calmed something chaotic in him. Let's go, Theung. And together they walked away from the party, from the lies, the pain, the betrayal, towards something real. Maybe even toward love. The city lights passed by in blurred streaks through the car window as Theung drove, one hand steady on the wheel, the other resting loosely in his lap. The silence in the car wasn't awkward, but thick, like something unspoken was sitting in the air between them. One stared out the window, arms crossed, still wrapped in the oversized hoodie Taeyong had given her after the pool incident. Her dress was damp, hair drying in tangled waves, but she didn't care. Her mind was a storm. Taeyong glanced at her every so often, his jaw tense, his throat working to swallow words he had not dared to speak. When he finally pulled up to her apartment building, the engine hummed for a moment before he shut it off. Neither of them moved. Then, without a word, Theo got out and walked around the car, opening her door like a quiet gentleman. She stepped out, clutching the hoodie tight around her, her voice hesitant. Do you want to come in just for a minute? He nodded once, silently, and followed her up the stairs. Inside her apartment, everything felt too still. The clock ticked faintly on the wall, the soft buzz of the fridge humming in the background. Wine turned to face him, suddenly anxious, her fingers nervously getting with the edge of her sleeve. I'm sorry. He tilted his head slightly, unsure of what she meant. About what I said back there, the whole marriage thing. I didn't mean to drag you into that. I just wanted to hurt Jungkook. I didn't think. I know you wouldn't marry me. I shouldn't have. She stopped because in one sudden graceful moment, Tim closed the distance between them. His hand slid around her waist, the other cradled her cheek, and then, gently at first, testing, breathing her in. Her eyes widened in surprise, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she melted into it. Deep and slow and purposeful, the kind of kiss that says everything words never could. When he finally pulled back, their breaths mingled close enough that his forehead nearly touched hers. His voice was quiet but firm. You think I wouldn't marry you? She blinked, her lips parted slightly, breath shaky. I didn't think. He cut her off. Theo, his eyes flipped to her waiting. I have loved you since college wine, even when I watched you fall for him, even when I told myself I would be okay just being your friend. But watching you drown tonight and watching him save her. His voice cracked just slightly, raw and honest. I thought I lost my chance again, but then you said my name, you chose me even if it was just a lie to him. It meant everything to me. Why stood frozen, tears stinging at the corner of her eyes? You really love me? Liam nodded, brushing a strand of damp hair from her face with his thumb. I do, I always have, and for the first time in a long time, mine felt safe. Not because someone saved her, but because someone saw her, every part of her, even the broken ones. She stepped forward and buried her face in his chest, and his arms wrapped tightly around her.